So welcome to the Health Transformation webinar, and hope you guys have been having an amazing week. We're going to get started here, and we're going to be jamming on some really cool stuff today. I think, are you doing a continuation from last week, Regan?
A little bit of a continuation from last week. We'll be talking about some stem cell therapy, but I'm going to talk about this term called drug mongering. And so a new study that just was published in Yahoo News about some things pharmaceutical companies do to get people on more drugs, more medications. And so I just think our audience should be aware of that thing that's going on. And then we'll talk about, we'll go all the way back to 1938 and when orthopedic use of amnion tissue started to be used. So yeah, I got a big agenda today.
Very cool. Well, yeah, we're excited about it. If you have any questions, anything, just feel free to type them into the chat box, and I'll field those and make sure they get taken care of. But let's rock this.
All right, let's kick this thing off. So hopefully you guys are, you've been engaged, you've been participating, taking notes. One of the things that I wanted to bring up real briefly is as you're trying to get your body healthier, as you're trying to promote your body's own stem cell health, three hormones that need to be firmly in check: cortisol, insulin, and estrogen. So we've done a lot of webinars, a lot of podcasts on these. So go to Go Wellness Radio, download our podcast if you have not yet. But then also think about, what in your life is causing stress, because the stress are some of those factors that can keep our stem cells from really growing and proliferating. Too much sugar can cause insulin dysregulation, and insulin dysregulation can make you grumpy, you'll age quicker, and you'll have slower release rates on your body's own stem cells. And then estrogen is the toxins that we get in the environment. And I've trained on this multiple times, but I was just speaking to one of my patients who came down from Idaho to get her knees injected. And I was just talking to her about the importance of doing some type of stress relief and meditation, and then finding ways to decrease the cortisol and stabilize it through getting rid of the pain, which she's doing right now. But then I also said, yeah, we're going to apply duct tape over your mouth and a shock collar for the sugar to keep the insulin at check. And then we put her on a detoxification diet. So I think these things are going to be really crucial as we're moving through this. But right now, I want to invite you guys out to a Chi running event. It's July 14th. Danny Dreyer, who's a hero of mine, this is in about a month. And Chi running, once I went to one of his workshops, I could run twice as far in about half the effort. I mean, it was crazy just changing the way that you move your body. So instead of being a power runner where you have to force yourself through running, if you want to feel like a deer kind of bounding through the forest, then this is absolutely your ticket to figuring out how to do this. I believe it's $250. East West Health and Salt Lake Running Company are hosting this, but Danny Dreyer is just phenomenal. So if you guys would love to, learn how to run with greater ease, come join us at this event. And then if you have not received my newest book, The Stem Cell Breakthrough, we're happy to share that with you. Just type it into the chat room, and we will send you a copy of that, an electronic copy, or next time you're in one of the clinics, come see us. But yeah, big book. Kate, I don't know if I told you, Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, I just got back from Toronto last night, and he and his wife Babs are going to be coming out in September to get stem cell therapy, so get treatments with us. So I'm really excited about that.
That is so cool. Awesome.
Yeah, it was the book that Marilyn came and gave Babs a copy of this, Dan's wife, and she read it and she said, all right, we got to go. So it was done.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty excited. All right, guys, so let's dive into the content today. And I don't want to cause depression or mad spread, anxiety, or I don't want to do that. I just want you guys to know the truth about what's happening in the pharmaceutical world. So Dr. Lawrence, one of our MDs up at the Park City Clinic, he sent me this article, and it was just published May 30th in the Yahoo News but it's called Malady Mongers, How Drug Companies Sell Treatments by Inventing Diseases. Now, this is something that I see all the time is pharmaceutical companies, one of their main missions is they want you to stay on the medication for as long as possible. I don't know if you realize that, but once you get diagnosed with diabetes, you're always going to have that. Once you get put on a hypertensive med, you're pretty much always going to have it unless you can, beg your doctor like, hey, my blood pressure is actually lower than normal, then maybe they'll consider taking you off of it. But getting to the root cause is allopathic is not about getting to the root cause. And that's our goal, is getting to the root cause. But here's what's happened, because our medical model about 120 years ago, we had two choices. We had the homeopathic model, which was really big in America in the 1800s and early 1900s. And then the allopathic model was coming up. And the allopathic model was basically one causative factor or one isolated disease, and then one treatment for that disease was the whole focus. And that's where we started stripping away, we went into double-blind studies and we started stripping away some of the subjectivity in medicine. And what we have now is we've got this mess of massive people on pharmaceuticals. So if you look at it, United States, in 2017, we're still the largest pharmaceutical market in the world, generating more than $450 billion of revenue. Europe, $214 billion. Does anyone know the population of Europe? United States, our population's about 330 million people, maybe 340 million now. Europe is about 900 million. So if you look at the math, like one country with a third of the population is doing more than double the revenue in pharmaceuticals. Now, pharmaceuticals have their place, but not the way that they're going about this. Here's what we found is U.S. pharmaceutical spending alone is spending double the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development average. So here's how some of it's doing. If you look at the Mayo Clinic, 70% of Americans are taking at least one prescription drug. So there's this term called disease mongering, and I'll give you just some context about it, and then we'll dive into some of the specifics. But pharmaceutical companies cannot market a drug that has not been proven to be safe by the FDA, right? And so there's a lot of hoops that they have to jump through. And so what happened is they've suddenly realized that, well, we can get people to stay on medications longer if we can make up a disease. So, we'll be talking about GERD, or we'll be talking about depression with pain. And so there's different ways that pharmaceutical companies have manipulated the marketing and created a story around why we should be on medications long term. And so disease mongering, pharmaceutical companies regularly pathologize everyday experiences, convince doctors that they are serious problems, tell a hypochondriac public it needs help and offers a cure, which is a new drug. Studies show that pharmaceutical industry normal business is characterized by persistent deceit, ranging from subtle image manipulation to outright frequent research fraud. This is Jack James. So, I look at this and I say, well, are we aware of what's really going on? Because according to the British Medical Journal, pharmaceutical companies spend $19 on advertising a new drug for every $1 spent on the research and development process. Because a lot of us don't realize this, but the research and development that the pharmaceutical companies are saying eats up so much of the revenue, and that's why drugs are so expensive. Most of that research and development comes out of universities, and there are philanthropic people in the United States who are donating millions of dollars for the research. And then we have our government, we have the National Institutes of Health, where we have a significant amount of taxpayer dollars that go into these funds. So yes, they have their own expenses, but most of what they're doing is they're saying, okay, now that we've got the research coming in, now we want to develop our product and let's market it. Because obviously I'm not against profit. I think pharmaceutical companies, there's obviously some good that they're doing, but at the same time, like, they are manipulating the public. So here's one of the diseases, osteopenia. Now, this is Cindy Pearson. She's the National Women's Health Network. Have any of you on this ever been diagnosed with osteopenia? Now, I remember I started seeing this more and more about 10 years ago, and I was like, yeah, I remember studying osteoporosis, but what is this osteopenia? And then I started looking into it, and I was like, oh, osteopenia is where they're like, well, you're kind of at the risk factors based on your age, and you're a woman. And so, if you look at osteopenia, that's one of the areas where they've really exploited women by telling them, you need to be on this medication because you have osteopenia. And the next step, if you don't take this medication, is you're going to get osteoporosis. And I can't tell you how many of my patients are freaked out because they were told they have osteopenia, and then all of a sudden they're feeling fragile in their bones, and it did motivate some of them to get lifting weights more. I was encouraging them on that, but really, not only is it the patients who get kind of the wool pulled over their eyes, but it's also the doctors. When osteopenia is something that can easily, it's just a term that they created to diagnose a disease so you could get on drugs earlier, diagnose osteoporosis, and they said, let's just call it osteopenia because it's kind of like a pre-stage. There's nothing beyond just a drug that they're using to treat this. So here's the reality. Marketing for a drug can start 7 to 10 years before they go on the market. It's illegal to promote a drug before it goes on the market. What they're promoting is the disease. It's not illegal to do it because there's no regulation on creating disease. The CDC estimates that we have about 1,500 new diseases that are introduced every single year onto the market. So what do you think about this, Kate, or anyone on the line with this?
It's a little bit wild.
Yeah. You wouldn't really think about the pharmaceutical companies creating diseases and then marketing those diseases. I mean, obviously we see that there's way too many drug commercials, and people are it's not getting better. That's the weird thing, is we have the internet, we have all these natural solutions, but it's really not getting better in our country. And when you can find Prozac in every single body of water in the United States, municipal or freshwater, that's pretty scary. The opiate epidemic is out of hand. So here's another one. This is GERD. Have you ever met someone with GERD, Kate?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Most I would say, a high number of percentage of the elderly population are all on some sort of GERD medication.
Yeah. So what we did is we took a condition that's typically called heartburn or acid reflux, and then we named it this gastroesophageal reflux disease, and then it took on these bigger connotations, and suddenly it was inflated in its impact on people. And so what they did is the doctors would say, look, you, instead of just taking some Tums or an antacid when you have heartburn, I want you to take this every single day. And so if you shut down the acid in your stomach, what happens?
You can't break down food in your stomach.
Exactly. So if you think of the digestive process, you start chewing food, you have these enzymes called amylase that break down the sugars. Those get absorbed first. And then the proteins and fats hit your stomach, and it's the hydrochloric acids that denature the proteins so that the proteins can be utilized in the small intestine and be, taken in as an energy source. And then in the small intestine, that's where the bile gets secreted from your gallbladder to emulsify the fats. But the problem is, if you have no stomach acid, you swallow food, and that food does not get cooked. It just sits in your stomach, and then you get more bloated. And then what happens is your stomach acid starts crawling up the fundus of the stomach, and then you feel like you've got more acid reflux. And so by using the medications, you're going to have actually more propensity to have less acid reflux, more acid reflux because of the lower volume of acid in your stomach. And so what happens is when people take these medications, it suppresses this small amount of acid that exists in the upper stomach. But then what happens is when they go off of those, the acid now is traveling up where they're actually symptomatic, and then they think, oh, I've got to stay on this medication my whole life. And so this is called the rebound effect. And so GERD is one of those classic areas where we're hurting people. And here's some of the side effects. Here's why it's dangerous. It's not just that people are on a medication every day. It's dangerous because when you shut down the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, you're not going to absorb the minerals that you need, calcium being one of the chief minerals for your bones. You're more likely to have osteoporosis if you have low stomach acid. The other thing that happens is your thyroid starts to shut down because the enzymes in the hydrochloric acid help your body make more thyroid hormone and also help you assimilate the iodine in your thyroid. The other thing is you're going to have more blood sugar dysregulation. You're going to have more SIBO propensity. So you can have small intestine bacteria that can overgrow because you have this putrefied food sitting in your small intestine that never got digested by your stomach. So here's on osteoporosis, and here's what she said is what they also did in that meeting, which was supported by the drug companies, was create a condition called osteopenia, which is less than normal but not osteoporosis. Then the company started telling doctors that they should get women on these treatment drugs to prevent the development of full-blown osteoporosis. Now, if you're a physician and you're on this, you've seen this many times where you have the persistent drug rep who comes in and gives you the research, gives you the data in a compelling way. You can see that there's multiple sightings and resources, and you say, okay, well, this is the new thing. And this is what happens at medical conferences all the time, is there's drug companies showing doctors how to prescribe more of their drugs. This happened with Paxil. They had a serotonin reuptake inhibitor that was late to the market, so they redefined shyness to be a social anxiety disorder. And they even had an NFL football player, I can't remember his name. Do you remember the name of the football player that used to talk about Paxil for his social anxiety?
No.
Yeah,
I don't.
It was one of the Green Bay Packers, not Brett Favre, but it was like a dude like that. And he would just say, yeah, before Paxil, I had severe social anxiety. And so Paxil became kind of the social anxiety drug. And then Cymbalta was just another antidepressant, but Cymbalta, they linked it to pain. And so guess what all of my fibromyalgia patients have been on through all the years? They've been on Cymbalta because of their fibromyalgia, because typically with fibromyalgia, you will be depressed and you also are going to have a lot of pain, which is no fun. And especially if no one validates what's going on in your body, you're going to have more depression and even more pain. So it's kind of interesting, what we've done or what the marketing companies are doing. They don't really create another disease, but they distinguish their antidepressant as the one you should use in your patient with depression and pain. It's really sort of brilliant. And their advertising line was depression hurts. And that's where Paxil was, or is, is if you have, social anxiety, if you don't like going out, if you're not as gregarious as you were, maybe you're an introvert and you need to recharge yourself before you go in a group of people. They don't bring up that fact, but then we'll get on the Paxil. So there's some interesting things. So what can we do about it? I think the biggest thing that we all need to do is be very aware that this is going on, and then look for ways that are more natural and look for, maybe you've got these symptoms, but don't pigeonhole yourself in a disease, because what I found in the disease pattern, if you give yourself a diagnosis, then you're limiting the amount of impact you can have on your health because you feel like you're stuck in this box, like osteopenia, which we talked about today. Suddenly your bones are fragile and you better be careful. And so with osteopenia, you just have to look at it and say, well, man, maybe I could get this reversed before it becomes osteoporosis, before it becomes something bigger. But don't let the pharmaceutical companies push you into a corner and tell you you've got this disease that the only cure for it is their medication. And it is FDA approved, by the way. So you want to just really look and get educated around this. If you've got GERD, if you've been diagnosed with GERD, once again, that's one of those creative diseases that they want you to take the medication every day. If you don't take it, yes, you're going to have a rebound issue, but come work with us and we can help you avoid some of the rebounding issues that you'll have from that. So hopefully that was interesting. Cade, what do you think about that?
That was very interesting, and it's crazy how many people actually come in with that diagnosis GERD, and they're on omeprazole once a day or whatever their dose is, and it's like that seems like a very consistent thing that we can get people off that really quick and get them back into being able to eat what they need and want without getting heartburn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to touch on real quick, I know, we're running to the end, but I told you guys I wanted to go in and talk about some natural solutions. So for those of you who have pain conditions, any degeneration in your body, this is where looking at the amnion tissue has been really phenomenal. And I mentioned to everybody last week that I was going to talk about some of the historical perspective. And so I'll touch on this briefly, and then next week we'll just pick up where we left off. But you can find studies where amniotic fluid was used in an orthopedic application as early as 1938. And so here's what they found, that the composition of amniotic fluid, this is from 1938, this is pretty cool, is that of hypotonic liquid with a specific gravity never above 1.010. It contains coagulable albumin, cholesterol, histidine, lysine, aldosterone, certain inorganic compounds, and varying amounts of mucin. The work of Cantrot, Suchtert, and Davis shows that the fluid is not urine or a serum dialysate, but a true product of the amniotic cells. So they've been using this in application, and they found the results have been impressive in the intra-articular fractures and encouraging selective cases of arthroptic arthritis, as well as persistent joint effusions. It successfully prevents the formation of new adhesions after closed manipulation of the joint. So a lot can happen with this. We're gonna pick up on this next week, but really appreciate you guys joining in, because we're on a mission to reverse pain and chronic disease for 1 million people by 2025. So the more people you can share the message to, the more people we can keep off of the medications. And especially when people are manipulated, that's where it's not okay. When people are being told they've got a disease and that disease gets inflated to a higher level than it really is. I just don't think that's right, and I don't think you guys do either. So tell your friends, your family, your loved ones. It's our elderly population who is exploited the most by these commercials. They watch TV too much. So next time you're at your parents' house, just unplug their TV and don't let them know, and then maybe they'll go 24 hours without watching. Great form.
That sounds like a dirty trick.
It's a dirty trick, but I don't know.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, take care, you guys. Bye-bye.